And if this is your first time watching AWS On Air, we welcome you and thank you for being here. So, Laurent, we're here to talk about Couchbase and how Couchbase leverages some AWS technology for your customers. What's the main thing that you want to talk about today?
The main thing, couple things, if I can. Couchbase.com/developers, which is what everybody should remember. And then Couchbase Capella. Couchbase Capella is our database as a service. It's available on all the major cloud, but of course, the most important one being AWS. So you can run your Couchbase cluster, you can provision Couchbase cluster automatically, you get the API, you get all the good stuff about Couchbase without having to manage it yourself. So you can concentrate on actually writing code, which is what developers do or should do, I guess.
I love the fact that you said we don't have to manage it by ourselves because being able to take what we want to do and offload that to some kind of a managed service allows us to move a little bit faster. So I imagine your customers are probably doing something very similar where they're using Couchbase technology to innovate and scale beyond their own wildest dreams.
It's like what's your job? And I used to work for a platform as a service company, similar to Roku. It was called Clever Cloud, and we had the same ambition. Just like we do all the boring stuff and all the things that we don't know how to do, which is basically business code, or all the thing that we have to know what you're doing in your company to be able to do. Of course, we can't, so we just stop there. We try to automate as much thing as possible so that you can focus on the thing that you know and that we don't. And so for Couchbase, there's the managed aspect of Couchbase Capella, of course. And what we try to sell when you talk about Couchbase, not to sell, but like to the point we want to make is that it's an all-in-one database in a sense. It's key value, it's integrated caching, it's SQL, it's full text, it's real-time analytics, you get offline sync. It's a data platform. I don't like the word platform. The word platform just like it could mean so many things. I think the moment you start calling yourself a platform, people ask if you make coffee. That's the usual joke you get at conferences. And I'm like,
There's platform as a service and there's software as a service, all the different SaaS things. And
yeah,
you mentioned Capella. I think that's database as a service, if I recall correctly.
absolutely. Database as a service, DBAS. And you have backend as a service, with it's something called Couchbase App Service, which is our mobile offering. So if you want to do mobile offline synchronization directly, that's what you would use. So yeah, platform, the best word in the industry. If you spend 10 years in the industry, you end up being a platform. That's what people do. And if you spend 20 years, you end up being hyper convergence, which is great as well. Maybe.
So if someone really wants to get started using Couchbase, what's the easiest way for them to kind of lift up and get words get going?
I mean, there's a couple of things you can do. You can go on Couchbase Capella. You can sign up for the trial. No credit card required. 30 days trial. That was the ad segment. And you could also go to a website called Couchbase.live, which I might be able to share right now, I think.
That you have it broken down by even languages. So if you have developers, and I think you told me that you can go to couchbase.com/developers. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
So the
Uh,
different developers that you work with or that are using your product can pick a language that best suits them and their platform.
exactly. Platform, ecosystem, stuff like this. We've tried to split our developers into four different roles, four different missions. Like we try to separate them into four groups: backend, mobile, full stack, and ops slash DBA slash the people that make sure that this thing is running smoothly. Like the developer don't really like, but they need if they want their application to run nicely. So you get to double click on your closest mission, maybe backend, and then double click on your favorite language and your I'm not going to say favorite, but most accurate problem that you have to solve.
Oh, I might
So
say
let's
favorite problem.
I mean, we're developers, right? That's what we do. Um, there's this thing called Nico or SQL++. It's not a language. It's actually, I mean, it's not a language. It's not a programming language. It's a fourth generation programming language, which means, I mean, you should go on Wikipedia and check that out. I'm not logged in. That's very sad. But basically, it's SQL applied on JSON documents, and it's like proper SQL. You can do pagination and offset limits. You can do joins. You can do You can use primary keys because we are a key value store. You
Okay.
can do, my favorite is of course the join part, because doing joins is pretty hard. Couchbase being this distributed database, join on distributed database is not easy, and then we solve that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can actually do joins on several JSON documents that are on several different machines. So yeah, that's one of the wonderful power of Couchbase. You
And I
get
like
to then,
the at the bottom you can also have this like previous and next areas, so you can kind of go through some tips and tricks and maybe some examples. That way someone can get started really easily using Couchbase.
right, lots of example. It's not designed as a tutorial, but you know, close enough. For instance, if I go on a nest is one of the keywords that we've added to flatten an array, because of course, if you're manipulating JSON, then you're manipulating complex structure like objects and arrays of, or object of arrays, or array of objects, all that stuff. So you need keywords to be able to manipulate that. And granted, like most SQL store right now do have JSON support, but it's not as well integrated sometimes than what we have. I mean, now the whole SQL has been thought after JSON because that's what we've started doing. So that's Couchbase, SQL query language, SQL plus plus. Something that's amazing and that's not here, unfortunately. I mean, you have window function. I'm not sure if we have flex index, but let me tell you a little bit about flex index. I did mention that Couchbase is a key value store with in-memory integrated in-memory caching. So, like, it's for instance, similar to Redis, or it's like
Hmm.
it's a JSON store. So think about Mongo or Postgres. If you want to store JSON on Postgres, you can too, and you would have Redis on top of it. So that's what it is. And then it also has SQL, just like Postgres, and it also has full text. So it could replace, in theory, not saying we are the best in every of those use cases, but you could replace an architecture with Couchbase where you have Redis and then Mongo or Postgres and then Elastic, and then we also do real-time analytics. So think about snowflakes in some cases, and then we also do mobile. That was
Okay.
the Couchbase App Service thing I told you about before. So a bit like
So you
Realm.
have mobile application support, you have real-time analytics, which I think is
Yeah.
going to be really powerful. And I imagine a lot of your customers are using real-time analytics to solve specific problems like complexity, and better understanding the analytics that they have and that they need to drive decisions for their business, I imagine.
Yes, it's we have some use cases like this. Some customers they use us to do a global data store. I don't quite remember the name, but basically they store everything into Couchbase, and they use Couchbase to do all the other use cases, kind of like a data lake. But the data lake word is just like the platform word. Maybe it should not be used anymore. So, for instance, we have Carrefour. Carrefour is a retail company in France, and they do product catalogs, loyalty, or orders management. That's 1.3 million visits per day. And that's running on
Wow.
Couchbase, and so that's the analytics stuff that we have. I mean, we have some interesting numbers, right? If you go on LinkedIn, we are the caching layer of LinkedIn, so that's 10 million requests per second, which is cool.
That's
10
really
million
cool. You said
requests per second.
1.3 million requests,
So 1.3 million visitors a day for Carrefour, and that's
visitors. What?
10 million a second on LinkedIn.
That is really powerful. And kind of going back to Capella one more time here, because you mentioned how it's a fully managed, distributed NoSQL database. How does Capella help your customers move faster and maybe transform getting into the market of their choosing?
So the thing is, um, let's say you are using all those solutions that we talked about before. So I don't know, maybe a key value in memory thing, and a document database, and a full text database, and real time stuff. So that's, if you're a developer, you have one SDKs for each of those, and so you need to, well, use all of these, and you need to cross all of those data sources in your code. So what's one of the, well, I mean, the two worst problem in tech? That's kind of a cliche, but someone said, I don't remember who that is. It's naming things, and it's caching invalidation. And Well, you don't have to do caching invalidation because Couchbase has an integrated cache. It works automatically, so it's a
Okay.
recently used algorithm that will clean up the cache as you use it. If you were using, a database and then a cache, you would have to decide what you put in that cache. You would have to manage all that things. Do you want to do that?
The TTL and validating, expiring it, getting rid of it, refreshing it, having stale cache, and making sure that the data access patterns that you have and need are getting you and returning the most recent and up to date
Right.
information. It's pretty critical for, let's say, like shopping carts, I imagine as well.
We have a lot of those, a lot of retail, so a lot of shopping carts, a lot of shopping carts with the full experience, like not just on the web but also on the mobile because of Couchbase Mobile. So we do have a lot of these. So that's caching and document. And then let's say you want to do SQL. Well, you have the language I showed you earlier. And let's say you want to do full text as well. What usually happens is that you would query Elastic or Solar or any other. What's the one from AWS OpenSearch? AWS
Hmm.
OpenSearch. Get that query going. You get all those information, but it's, let's say you manage permission and users. Those user and permission are not on Elastic; they're on your SQL database.
Okay.
So you end up having two different set of results. And then the result you have on Elastic, you need to map through your security permission user system on the SQL database. So you do a query here with some SDK, you do a query there with some other SDK, and you mix and match those two. With Couchbase, you do a SQL query, SQL++, and in your workflows, you can directly decide to query one of those index, one of those full text index. You don't have to do a separate query. It's just in the same query.
It's simplifying the entire process for anyone just by using something like Couchbase because
So you
instead of having this like two or three different funneling into your data, it's one query in, results back out.
so you end up being so much faster. And the beauty of SQL++ is that the select clause, usually when you do proper SQL, you have some rows and you need to map those rows to a proper structure in your code. Or you could use JSON, which is what the select clause of Couchbase allows you to do. And so you can build the answer you want directly into that query, which is quite powerful because then you sort of have a microservice. Because
Micro,
if you
micro,
think
microservice.
if you think about it, SQL will allow you to express pretty much anything. I mean, not anything, but many things. Like we have window function, we have lots of interesting things. Like it's proper modern SQL, not some weird SQL from some weird database that does JSON as an afterthought. Proper SQL. It's great. You can just ask what you want, get the response as you want in the select clause because it just send you JSON, and that's it.
And then you're good to go. We've talked about a lot of stuff here. Couchbase.com/developers. You talked about couchbase.com/live. Is there anywhere else that someone can go to kind of get started to understand more about your business and the products that you offer?
So that's Couchbase.live, Couchbase.com/developers, cloud, Couchbase.cloud, Couchbase
And I
Capella.
think you mentioned there's a YouTube channel as well. I believe it's youtube.com/c/Couchbase server. They can go there as well.
Yes, Couchbase server. That's what we call legacy in our developer language, and so the name of our YouTube channel is still called Couchbase server and predates Couchbase Capella. So maybe we should just name it Couchbase at some point. But yes, Couchbase Capella, our database as a service, is a fully managed Couchbase server solution, so that you don't have to do it yourself.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here to talk to us about Couchbase, to educate all of us about the products and offerings that you have and getting and simplifying the entire process for getting data in and getting data out.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Cheers.
And take care.
Bye.